Let's get real. Hollywood wasn't always so buttoned up. Long before the censors locked down Tinseltown, the silver screen was bursting with stories so scandalous they'd still raise eyebrows and ratings today. What if I told you that some of the wildest, boldest films ever made came out nearly a century ago? Would you dare to watch them now? Strap in, because we're counting down the top 12 pre-code movies that would send today's ratings board running for their red stamp. Which one will surprise you most? Babyface, 1933. If you think modern Hollywood pushes boundaries, Babyface kicked down the door and dared anyone to stop it. Starring the electrifying Barbara Stanwyck, this film didn't just flirt with controversy, it seduced it outright. The plot follows Lily Powers, a woman raised in the roughest part of town and exploited by her own father. After years of being treated as a commodity, Lily decides to turn the tables. She leaves for the big city and climbs the corporate ladder the only way men would let her, by using them. What makes Babyface legendary isn't just its daring premise. It's the way the film practically relishes in its protagonist's unapologetic ambition. Lily works her way up the ranks by charming, outwitting, and yes, seducing powerful men, leaving a trail of broken hearts and ruined careers in her wake. At a time when nice girls were all audiences were supposed to see, Stanwyck's character smashed the glass ceiling with stilettos. The censors lost their minds. Scenes were cut, endings were changed, and even after all the slicing and dicing, the film still sizzled. The original uncut version was considered lost for decades, but when it resurfaced, it stunned modern audiences all over again. There's a reason critics and historians agree. If Babyface were released today, it'd breeze past an R and land squarely in NC-17 territory. The themes of exploitation, power games, and transactional relationships are raw and real, nothing sugar-coated. And Stanwyck's performance, still untouchable. In the end, Babyface isn't just a relic, it's a grenade tossed into the polite drawing room of early Hollywood. Even in the 21st century, it's got more bite than most so-called edgy films. If you want to see how much trouble one determined woman can cause when society's rules don't apply, this is where you start. The Divorcee, 1930. Talk about smashing taboos. The Divorcee lit a match under every good girl expectation and let it burn. Norma Shearer, Hollywood's original queen of complication, stars as Jerry Martin, a woman whose life goes off the rails after her husband cheats and then expects her to forgive and forget. But Jerry doesn't play the doormat. Instead, she decides that if the rules don't apply to men, they sure as hell won't apply to her. In an era when divorce was still whispered about in polite company, this film made it the main event. Jerry gets even by having her own affair, and the film refuses to paint her as villain or victim. It's a grown-up drama about double standards, female desire, and what happens when a woman reclaims her autonomy. And get this, the film doesn't punish her with tragedy or shame. Instead, it asks, why should she be judged for playing the same game as men? The censors, predictably, went berserk. Audiences at the time were stunned by the film's frankness about marriage, infidelity, and a woman's right to live by her own rules. Shearer even won an Oscar for the role, and The Divorcee became a lightning rod for debates about what Hollywood should and shouldn't show. If you think the themes of sexual politics, gender hypocrisy, and moral ambiguity would go unnoticed by today's ratings board, think again. This is NC-17 material all the way. But that's what makes The Divorcee so thrilling, even now. It's not just a melodrama, it's a time capsule of when Hollywood dared to take real risks and challenge real audiences. Watch it, and you'll see just how modern a 1930 film can feel. Jerry Martin walked so every complicated, empowered film heroine today could run. The Public Enemy, 1931. Ready for a shot of pure adrenaline? The Public Enemy isn't just a gangster movie. It's the original blueprint for every outlaw anti-hero that followed. This is James Cagney's turf, and he doesn't tiptoe onto the screen. He storms it. The film tracks the rise and spectacular crash of Tom Powers, a streetwise bootlegger clawing his way up the underworld during Prohibition. Back then, America was fighting a losing battle with its own temptations, and this movie made sure you felt every punch, every betrayal, and every blast from a Tommy gun. What makes The Public Enemy so jaw-dropping isn't just the violence, though there's plenty of that. It's the way it pulls no punches about who gets hurt when a man goes bad. The infamous grapefruit scene where Cagney mashes a half grapefruit into Mae Clark's face became an instant symbol of how raw and real these movies dared to get. This was a world of desperation, bootleg deals gone sideways, and people making ugly choices to survive. The film didn't just shock censors, it sent studio executives scrambling. Here was a story that didn't ask for forgiveness or provide easy answers. It was too honest for comfort and too thrilling to ignore. In an era where you could get arrested for carrying a flask, the Public Enemy gloried in the vices polite society wanted to pretend didn't exist. But underneath the gunfire and tough talk, there's a real question. What turns a kid from a good family into Public Enemy number one? If you released The Public Enemy today, with its relentless violence, harsh morality, and not-so-subtle commentary on the American dream gone sideways, the ratings board wouldn't hesitate. NC-17. It's that raw, that relentless, and that honest about the darkness lurking under the surface. Cagney's performance crackles with danger, and the film's legacy is clear. Every gangster film since owes it a debt. So next time you see a modern crime drama praised for pushing boundaries, remember, Cagney and company were breaking them before most directors were even born. Blonde Crazy, 1931. If you think romantic comedies are all about moonlit walks and chaste kisses, Blonde Crazy is here to laugh in your face. This is a romantic comedy with a shot of whiskey and a sly wink, a con artist caper starring James Cagney and the ever-sparkling Joan Blondell. But don't let the title fool you. This film didn't just flirt with trouble, it took it home and introduced it to the family. Here's the setup. Cagney plays Bert, a bellhop with charm to spare and morals in short supply. Blondell is Anne, his quick-witted partner who's every bit his match. Instead of swooning over a knight in shining armor, Anne teams up with Bert to scam, grift, and hustle their way across the city. The banter is rapid fire, the chemistry is electric, and the double crosses come as fast as the one-liners. What made Blonde Crazy truly outrageous in its time and still surprisingly racy today is its refusal to judge its leads. These are two people who know the world is crooked and decide to play it for all it's worth. The film is packed with sly innuendos, cheeky jokes, and situations that would have the ratings board sweating bullets. In one scene, Anne, in nothing but a towel, is interrupted by Bert in her hotel room. The sexual tension is as obvious as the smirk on Cagney's face. And the dialogue? Let's just say it's as sharp as a switchblade. Blondell delivers lines you'd expect from a modern-day wisecracker, and Cagney keeps pace with every verbal jab. The censors tried to keep up, but the film's wit moves too fast for scissors. Today, Blonde Crazy would have to fight for an R, maybe even an NC-17 thanks to its casual treatment of immoral living, adult humor, and that unmistakable pre-code energy. If you're tired of sanitized, paint-by-numbers rom-coms, give this one a spin. You'll realize Hollywood's been breaking its own rules since before the rules even stuck. Millie, 1931. Every now and then, a film from the past feels so modern, so wild, it practically jumps off the screen. Millie is one of those movies. If you think tales of female independence, broken marriages, and moral gray zones are a new invention, think again. Millie was there first, and it came out swinging. Helen Twelvetrees stars as Millie Blake, a woman who's not about to let society's rules keep her down, even if that means running headlong into scandal. The story starts with Millie marrying a rich New Yorker, but the dream quickly sours when she discovers he's cheating. Instead of crumbling, Millie leaves him, determined to carve out a life for herself and her daughter. But here's where it gets spicy. Millie refuses to take the safe, respectable route. She starts associating with other women who make their living charming, wealthy men. It's a world of cocktails, secrets, and closed doors, and Millie navigates it with sharp intelligence and even sharper resolve. The film dives into territory that would set off every alarm for today's censors: extramarital affairs, kept women, predatory men, and even the threat of violence against Millie's daughter. There are no easy answers, no moralizing speeches, just a complex, flawed woman doing what she must do to survive. Twelvetrees' performance is raw and real, and the film's willingness to confront ugly realities is as jarring today as it was in 1931. The censors tried to bury Millie, but audiences couldn't look away. The film became infamous for its depiction of female sexuality, independence, and the dangers that come with defying the status quo. It's a time capsule of an era that was both glamorous and treacherous, a world where rules were made to be broken. If Millie came out now, it'd land in the NC-17 zone without breaking a sweat. Not because it's gratuitous, but because it's honest, painfully, beautifully, and unapologetically honest. And honestly, isn't that what makes pre-code Hollywood so unforgettable? Call Her Savage, 1932. If you think 1930s Hollywood was a land of polite manners and gentle stories, Call Her Savage will make you do a double take. This film came out swinging, and then swinging again. Starring the magnetic Clara Bow, Call Her Savage is a wild, relentless tale of rebellion, identity, and self-destruction. It takes the notion of difficult women and ramps it up past 10 straight into how did they get away with this territory. Bow plays Nasa Springer, a Texas wildcat whose every move seems designed to shock and defy the people around her. Raised in privilege but fueled by frustration, Nasa storms through life with fists raised and rules broken. She fights, she drinks, she jumps into relationships, she even gets in brawls with men and flirts with danger at every turn. At a time when most screen heroines were soft-spoken and demure, NASA is raw nerve and raw ambition. What really launches Call Her Savage into the NC-17 Hall of Fame is its unflinching portrayal of topics that were absolute dynamite back then, and still make censors nervous today. There are scenes with implied BDSM, flashes of undergarment-free rebellion, and a notorious gay bar sequence that made the Hays office clutch its pearls. The film openly depicts a woman indulging in what society labeled as sin, and not just indulging, but owning it. It doesn't stop there. As the story unfolds, Nasa faces betrayal, heartbreak, and even violence, culminating in her becoming a single mother fighting for survival. The emotional intensity is matched by physical chaos. Fires, fights, and a string of scandals that leave most viewers with their jaws on the floor. It's a fever dream that doesn't let up, and Bow's performance is the engine that drives it forward. Turbulent, messy, and unforgettable. Call Her Savage is one of those films that could never be made in the decades that followed. It's a time capsule, yes, but also a powder keg, still volatile after nearly a century. If you want to know just how far pre-code Hollywood was willing to go, start here, but be warned. It's not for the faint of heart, and the ratings board today would slap it with an NC-17 so fast, your head would spin. Redheaded Woman, 1932. If ever a film wore its defiance like a badge, it's Redheaded Woman. Jean Harlow's Lil Andrews isn't just a femme fatale, she's a full-blown force of nature. This is the movie that made the censors sweat bullets and the audience cheer for the bad girl. Harlow struts through every frame with a wicked grin, taking what she wants and daring anyone to stop her. The setup is simple, but the execution is dynamite. Lil is a secretary with big ambitions and no intention of playing by society's rules. She seduces her married boss, then schemes her way up the social ladder, toppling marriages and reputations along the way. The film is peppered with sly innuendos, unapologetic seductions, and some of the cheekiest, most subversive humor you'll find outside of a modern black comedy. What set Redheaded Woman apart in its day, and what still makes it a shocker, is the complete lack of punishment for its heroine. Lil doesn't learn her lesson or beg for forgiveness. She wins, she manipulates, she lies, she pushes men to their limits, and the script roots for her every step of the way. The censors, desperate to rein her in, demanded dozens of cuts, but the film still blazed through theaters like a 4-alarm fire. There's a reason this movie is constantly cited in film history books as one of the great pre-code outrages. It's fast, funny, and wildly irreverent. Lil's exploits would raise more than just eyebrows today. They'd earn a hard NC-17 for sexual candor, marital mayhem, and sheer attitude. Harlow's performance is a masterclass in controlled chaos, and every scene crackles with danger and wit. Redheaded Woman didn't just break the rules, it made a game out of shredding them, then dared you not to love every minute. If you've ever cheered for a cinematic troublemaker, thank Jean Harlow and this film for making it possible. 3 on a match 1932. Some films slip under the radar until you see them, and then you can't look away. 3 on a match is that kind of movie. It's a high-octane blend of melodrama, crime, and moral ambiguity that would have the modern ratings board sprinting for the NC-17 sticker, no questions asked. This is pre-code storytelling with teeth, and it bites hard. The plot is a tangled web involving three childhood friends played by Joan Blondell, Anne Dvorak, and Bette Davis, who take dramatically different paths as adults. The film's engine is Dvorak's character, Vivian, a bored society wife who tumbles headlong into a world of gambling, addiction, and desperation. What starts as a simple, wrong turn story quickly explodes into territory that Hollywood wouldn't touch for decades. Illicit affairs, drug use, child endangerment, and violent crime. The pace is relentless, and the moral line is so blurred it practically disappears. Vivian's descent isn't sanitized. She's shown spiraling, making bad choices, and dragging everyone around her into the wreckage. Meanwhile, the film's depiction of the underworld is all shadows and sharp edges, with tough guys and schemers lurking around every corner. There's even a notorious scene involving a child's kidnapping that's as intense and unsettling today as it was in 1932. Censors were appalled, but audiences were riveted. The movie packs more scandal and suspense into an hour than most modern thrillers manage in two. Its honest portrayal of addiction and the consequences of self-destruction was unheard of at the time, and it's still rare to see a film tackle such darkness with this much raw energy. If Three on a Match were released now, there's no way it would get away with just an R. The frankness, the criminal grit, and the emotional brutality make it a case study in why the pre-code era had to be tamed. But that's exactly what makes it so unforgettable. A story that never lets up, never softens the blow, and never apologizes for showing the messy, complicated side of life. She Done Him Wrong, 1933. Every so often, a film comes along with such star power and sass. It doesn't just make headlines, it changes the rules. She Done Him Wrong is that kind of classic, and at its heart is Mae West, a performer who practically invented the art of the double entendre. West plays Lady Lou, a brassy, wisecracking saloon singer who rules her seedy New York club with a sharp tongue and an even sharper eye for opportunity. From the moment West waltzes on screen, you know you're in for something different. Lou isn't just a woman with agency. She's a woman who makes agency look dangerous. The film brims with innuendo, sly glances, and lines that dance just past the edge of what was acceptable even before the censors showed up. "Why don't you come up sometime and see me?" Wasn't just a pickup line. It was a gauntlet thrown at society's feet. But She Done Him Wrong isn't just about saucy dialogue. The story is loaded with crime, double crosses, and more than a hint of scandal. Lou fends off lecherous suitors, outsmarts crooked cops, and tangles with criminals, all while barely breaking a sweat. She's not a damsel in distress. She's the storm everyone else is trying to survive. It's a vision of female power that was, and still is, light years ahead of its time. The censors tried to dull West's shine, but she was simply too bright. Even in a version with some lines and shots trimmed, the movie sizzled. Today, the unfiltered sexuality, moral ambiguity, and unapologetic attitude would leave the ratings board scrambling for an NC-17 tag. No film before or since has quite captured the Mae West effect: sassy, seductive, and a little bit dangerous. She Done Him Wrong is more than just a pre-code classic. It's a reminder that bold women and bold stories have always found a way to shine through. Mae West didn't just push boundaries, she redrew the map. Night Nurse, 1931. If you thought hospital dramas were a modern invention, think again. Night Nurse took white coats and stethoscopes and turned them into props for one of the wildest pre-code thrillers ever made. Barbara Stanwyck stars as Laura Hart, a fresh-faced nurse plunged into a web of high society secrets, criminal plots, and moral minefields so messy it's a wonder anyone made it out alive. From the jump, Night Nurse is in your face about things the censors were desperate to ignore. There's drinking, gunplay, child abuse, and a brutal realism about life on the edge. Stanwyck's character doesn't just bandage wounds, she's out to expose a murderous plot against two innocent children. The movie peels back the curtain on wealth, power, and cruelty with a level of frankness that's still jaw-dropping. And then there's Clark Gable, before he became Hollywood royalty, playing a sadistic chauffeur whose mere presence on screen is enough to make your skin crawl. The violence is intense for its time. There are scenes of abuse, threats, and more than a few moments that had 1930s audiences gasping in shock. But what really gives Night Nurse its edge is the way it refuses to back down. Stanwyck's Laura Hart is nobody's victim. She's determined, smart, and more than a match for the thugs and monsters she faces. The censors didn't stand a chance. Night Nurse kept pushing, right up to the line and then some, all while maintaining a gritty, pulpy sense of fun. Today, the mix of child endangerment, violence, and sexual tension would be an instant NC-17. But that's exactly why it's endured. Night Nurse is fearless, fast, and refuses to look away from the ugly parts of life. For anyone who thinks old Hollywood played it safe, this movie is a cold water wake-up call. One that proves sometimes the scariest stories aren't found in the shadows, but right there in the heart of so-called civilization. Scarface, 1932. Every gangster film you love owes a blood debt to Scarface. This is the granddaddy of all mob movies, the one that wrote the rules and then broke them all. Paul Mooney delivers a performance for the ages as Tony Camonte, a ruthless, ambitious hoodlum who rises to power through sheer violence and charisma. Forget subtlety. Scarface is a sledgehammer, smashing its way through the criminal underworld and daring you to look away. From the first reel, it's clear Scarface means business. The film is a symphony of machine guns, ambition, and chaos. Camonte isn't just a criminal, he's a tornado, blowing apart anyone who gets in his way. Director Howard Hawks pulls no punches, showing the rise and fall of a man for whom the American dream is just another word for conquest. The violence is stylized, but brutal. People get gunned down in cold blood, bodies pile up, and the streets run red. But the real shock comes in the story's psychological undertones. Tony's obsession with his sister adds an uncomfortable, taboo edge, and the movie's open mockery of the law was more than enough to put censors on high alert. The film's body count and disregard for good taste became a national talking point, prompting calls for stricter film regulation and, eventually, the infamous Hays Code crackdown. If Scarface landed in theaters today, there's no way it would slip by with just an R. Between the relentless violence, the adult themes, and the moral vacuum at its center, the film is pure NC-17 material. No sugarcoating, no apologies. And that's why it's so enduring. Scarface is raw, electrifying, and still capable of shocking audiences almost 100 years after its release. If you want to see where the gangster genre was born and why censors finally put their foot down, this is the film to watch. Just be warned, once you've seen Scarface, you'll never watch crime movies the same way again. Safe in Hell, 1931. Sometimes a movie's title tells you everything you need to know. Safe in Hell is exactly what it sounds like. A journey straight into chaos, where the only way out is through fire. This under-the-radar Warner Brothers gem doesn't just push boundaries, it leaps right over them with a wink and a dare. Dorothy McHale plays Gilda, a New Orleans call girl whose life is a series of hard knocks and harder choices. When she accidentally kills a man in self-defense, she's whisked away to a lawless Caribbean island, a haven for society's outcasts and fugitives. From the moment Gilda steps off the boat, the movie crackles with danger and forbidden intrigue. The island is a boiling pot of criminals, drifters, and men who see every woman as fair game. Safe in Hell doesn't shy away from the darkness. It steers right into it. Gilda is surrounded by predators and temptation. Her safety is always hanging by a thread. The film depicts everything polite Hollywood wanted to sweep under the rug: prostitution, murder, addiction, and the ugly truth about life on the margins. But what really puts this movie in the NC-17 category is its attitude. There's an honesty here, a refusal to sugarcoat survival or pretend that virtue always wins. Gilda isn't a saint, and the island is anything but a sanctuary. The threats she faces are real and constant, and the film pulls no punches about what it costs to stay alive in a world with no rules. Even the good guys are tainted, and every moment is thick with risk. Censors hated it. Audiences were stunned by the unflinching look at female agency in the face of total lawlessness. McHale's performance is fierce and vulnerable at once, a woman who's nobody's victim, even as the odds are stacked against her. The film's ending is as bold and uncompromising as the journey itself. In an era that usually punished women for stepping out of line, Safe in Hell dares to show what happens when the world refuses to play fair, and when a woman decides she'll play even dirtier. Watch it today, and you'll understand why the censors had nightmares about the pre-code era. Safe in Hell is still hot to the touch, proof that sometimes the most dangerous places are the only places you can be free. So, after all that, which of these pre-code shockers would you dare to watch in the bright light of day? Hollywood may have slammed the door on this wild chapter, but these movies still sizzle, raw, fearless, and unapologetic. Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe, and share this with anyone who thinks old movies were all about innocence. Which banned boundary breaker did we miss? Stick around, because in classic Hollywood, there was always another rule left to break.